Hey everybody, it's Colleen Pearl, the Cool Crone, and thank you for joining me for this video today. I will be your astrologer for April 2023. Astrology for April 2023. After the fast and furious energy of March, April slows down only a little bit, and then things will come to a screeching halt near the end of the month. Now, April starts off with fairly good energy. The full moon happens on April 6th. I already have a video up on my channel all about this full moon because it's pretty impactful. Now, Libra is the loveliest of signs, but this full moon is a tough one. So you're going to want to watch that video so you can be prepared. Then on the 20th, we have a new moon, a second new moon in Aries. It is also a solar eclipse. It's at just 12 minutes past midnight at 29 degrees 49 minutes of Aries. And this is a big one. This is an eclipse at the anaretic degree of Aries, and so I've done a whole video about eclipses in general and this particular eclipse in Aries. Now, the day after the eclipse, Mercury turns retrograde. So I have linked a bunch of my Mercury retrograde videos in the description, both Mercury retrograde videos for how to handle the Mercury retrograde and specifically how to work with the energy of Mercury retrograde in an earth sign, Taurus. All right, so moving on. Now we're going to talk about the planetary changes in April. On the 3rd, we have Mercury entering the sign of Taurus. On the 5th, as I said, we have the full moon in Libra. On the 11th, we have Venus entering the sign of Gemini. On the 20th, we have that solar eclipse, which is a new moon in Aries at 29 Aries 52. On the 20th, we also have on the same day, the sun moving into the sign of Taurus. And the very next day, we have Mercury retrograding also in the sign of Taurus. So I'm going to go through the April aspects week by week, starting with April 1st, which is Mars trine Saturn. Now, Mars and Saturn are in water signs right now. Neither one of these planets are particularly happy being in the water signs, so they're not as strong. And that's a good thing. We have a harmonious aspect between these two planets. These are malefic planets. These are difficult planets. So when we have a harmonious trine in them and they're a little bit weaker than they usually are, this turns out to be a good thing. If you have water sign planets in the very, very early degrees, up to, say, 6 or 7 degrees of the water sign planets, then this trine is going to be very, very beneficial for you. If you have planets in the mutable signs, even in the late degrees of the fixed signs, 28, 29 degrees of the fixed signs, but more the early degrees of the mutable signs, which is Pisces, Sagittarius, Virgo, and Gemini, then this aspect could still be a little trying for you. It's not going to be awful because the planets are kind of weak, but it's not going to be, but you are going to feel it. You're definitely going to feel it. And then on to April 2nd, we have Mercury squaring Pluto. Now remember, Mercury hasn't gone retrograde yet, so Mercury is still, plowing along in Taurus, and Pluto is now in Aquarius. This produces biased thinking. The Pluto impulse is somewhat sporadic here, but nevertheless, when a person does study or research under this aspect, they will be convinced that whatever conclusion they come to is completely right, whether it jives with their reality or their own values. Now, if you're sensitive to this aspect, don't impose your opinions on others at this time. Wait about a week until you can see more clearly about this particular topic, and then ask yourself, does this really ring true for you? Because it may not after about a week. And then on the 4th, we have Mars sextiling the node. Now, this is kind of a hallmark of this entire period. We have had a lot of nodal emphasis ever since the vernal equinox. We had a lot of involvement with the node and the planets on that particular new moon. And we've got a lot of nodal activity this month and leading up to the solar eclipse. So Mars sextiling node is the first aspect in April that is really kind of putting a fire under you to look at this topic. So you are going to all of a sudden be very consumed with, what is my legacy? What am I leaving behind? What's my life about? What's the meaning of my life? And you're going to be working towards that and trying to align your actions, your job, the way you treat your family, the way you treat others, the way you live your life in general, to be more in line with what you want to accomplish in life. So you may also be modifying your whole game plan right now, which may be confusing to people around you. But we do have Mars in Cancer, and that emphasizes the family. So very likely they are also doing their own changes of game plan as well. Then we go on to the 5th of April, where we have the Sun conjunct Chiron. Now, the Sun conjunct Chiron, this is a healing aspect. This is a time of your ability to perform or receive profound healing. That is, especially if you have any planets in fire signs in that midway mark. So if you have planets in fire signs from 5 to 20 degrees, this is really going to be the primo time for you to either receive healing or to do some healing on others or on yourself. Now, if you have cardinal signs at those degrees, Aries, good. Any other cardinal sign, it's going to be difficult. So that doesn't mean you can't get the healing. And actually, it would still be a good time for you to try to do the healing. What it means is that it's going to be a challenge. There's going to be a challenge there. You're going to be resistant in some way, either physically or mentally, to getting the healing done. So watch your bias. And we go back to that Pluto and Aquarius aspect. Watch your bias right now. And this aspect is only a few days after that one. So you may not be able to take advantage of that if you have those cardinal signs in those sensitive degrees. Then we have Mercury sextile Saturn. Now, this is actually a really nice aspect. It's not particularly strong. Mercury is in Taurus. That's not a particularly strong placement for Mercury. And Saturn, again, is in Pisces, where it's somewhat weak. However, you can use this harmonious energy to approach things in your day-to-day life in a very practical, steady way, and to adopt very practical methods or systems for accomplishing your daily tasks, which will really pay off, maybe take less stress off of you, maybe make things quicker for you, more efficient, more effective. So it's a good time to adopt those different methods or systems that are more reliable. Then we have Mercury conjunct the node. Now, this is another node involvement, Mercury being in the early degrees of Taurus and the node also being in the early degrees of Taurus. Now, this aspect brings to mind one's feelings about because we're talking about the nodes, your feelings about your life work and your day-to-day life. Mercury representing your day-to-day life, and the sign of Taurus representing work and making money or using your talents. On the positive side, this allows you to really accept criticism about yourself with a healthy attitude. So you can be fairly objective about yourself, and you may feel like you want the criticism just because you need another perspective in order to improve that. And again, you're talking about changing up the way you live your life, changing up your methods and the way you approach day-to-day life in order to be more in line with the legacy or mission or destiny that you see for yourself. So this can help you, this conjunction here, especially if you have planets in the early signs, the early degrees of any of the earth signs. If you have planets in the early degrees of fixed signs other than Taurus, then this may be a challenging aspect for you. But again, maybe somebody is challenging you to be more self-aware, to be more able to accept criticism. So that's not a bad thing to be able to accept and humble yourself to. There's always a negative side, though, to these challenging aspects. And, well, there's a negative side to every aspect. But the thing is that some people take the approach that life is just very hard on them. They see themselves as somewhat of a victim in the universe. And this makes them feel that it's futile. It's futile for them to try to improve things because the universe is just against them. This is a person who is choosing not to see that they are in control of their life's design and their life's choices. So this conjunction with the node gives you the opportunity to gain some better perspective about your weaknesses or lack and seeing if you can turn that around. How do I change that? How do I take my life in my hands and make choices that will create a better life? And a lot of it starts with things like prayer and meditation, and then from there, visualization, and then from there, actually manifestation, where you take it, you go into action to create the life that you want and manifest it the way you want. So rather than wallowing in unhappiness, once you see this Mercury conjunct node, even if initially you feel like, yes, I've had a rough life, those are lessons for you to learn from. The universe never produces a life that is just horrible, just for nothing, for no reason. There is always a reason. And if you talk to many people who have become leaders or people that we look up to and role models, you may find, if you just scratch the surface, you may find that their backstory is one of difficulty. Buddha said, life is pain, life is difficult. But out of that, we can find enlightenment. We have to, make the decision that we're going to learn from these lessons. The next aspect is Venus sextile Neptune. Now, I've talked about Neptune quite a bit in these astrological videos because Neptune is coming up in the next few years, actually, to changing signs. And having had Neptune in Pisces for so long, it has created many cults. It has created people who are easily swayed. And it hasn't created the people. What it's done is it's created the atmosphere where many, many people can get hoodwinked, brainwashed, taken advantage of, fooled, tricked, deceived. And those are all key words about Neptune. So with Venus sextiling Neptune, this is a bit of lightening up of that energy. This is a bit of, yes, they can still deceive you with beauty and the sparkly, shiny thing, but it can also allow you to tap into your imagination, your intuition, and your spirituality to ask yourself the question, does this make sense? If this doesn't make sense, then maybe the person who's telling you these things is wrong. And I do think that in the next, well, definitely the next year, but even in the next few months, I think that a lot of people are going to kind of wake up to the idea that they have been hoodwinked, they have been fooled or deceived by somebody who has a very strong Neptunian influence over them. So I think this Venus sextile Neptune is just the beginning of people becoming a lot more self-aware that they have been taken in by somebody who didn't have their best outcome at heart. On April 8th, we will really be feeling this aspect between Mercury and Mars. It's a sextile. They're 60 degrees away from each other. But what we have here is the planet Mercury, which is quick. Quicksilver is the metal for Mercury. Mercury wants you to talk fast, speak fast, communicate quickly, get your thoughts down on paper or draw your thoughts very quickly. It does not want you to waste time doing things slowly when there's no need for it. But Mercury's in the sign of Taurus. Taurus is all about slow, not pedantic, but slow, steady, practical, don't rush, consistency, don't give up, make sure that you finish the job. That's not usually what Mercury is about. It's in a harmonious aspect with Mars. Now, Mars is also in a tough sign. Mars is in Cancer. Cancer is the sign that wants to protect their loved ones and to protect their own heart and to be at home and to kind of snuggle into their own home. But they also are people that like to go out in the world and teach. They have great, wonderful memories. They can, talk extemporaneously about any number of topics because of their great memories. So they're great teachers, but they're also, at heart, they want to protect themselves. They don't want to be hurt. They don't want someone to take advantage of them and hurt them. So with Mars sextiling Mercury in these signs, it's not the usual, oh, my mind is just going to speed up so fast that I'm going to spin out of control, which can happen with Mercury sextile Mars. So the mind does speed up here, but within practical applications. So if you're learning something, for instance, which is a very Cancerian thing, you will take it a little slower than usual, but you will learn it very deeply, very well. You'll absorb it. You'll have a great memory of it. One application I could see for this is with Mercury in Taurus and Mars in Cancer coming together. I could see some culinary events coming together very quickly and deliciously. You've got Taurus, which loves food, and Cancer, which loves to make food. So that's a really good pairing. And if you use this cooking analogy towards your life, you might be able to figure out how best Mercury and Mars in these signs would come together, because the sextile is a harmonious blending of energies and opportunities, and what the outcome might be for you. So it's in the early degrees of Taurus and Cancer. So Taurus being a fixed earth sign, Cancer being a cardinal water sign. So almost every person in here is probably going to have some planets that are in the early degrees of almost any sign. You've got anything from 4 to, let's say, 10 degrees of pretty much any sign is going to get some kind of impact from this pairing. And it lasts a long time. It lasts up until the end of the month, actually. So during the few weeks that we have this, we will be experiencing confidence, assertiveness, and quick-moving thoughts. I mean, not super quick, but fairly quick-moving thoughts in terms of certain things. Combining things, building things like a recipe in cooking. When you're combining those things, you'll find that things come together quickly. Your memory will be strong, as I mentioned before, but your mind will not be going quick like it would be if Mercury were in, say, Virgo or Gemini. You may find also that people during this period are really hiding and protecting their emotions. They're really not wanting to be out there and be vulnerable in any way. So you'll find that while people are very thorough in what they're doing, while you think that you're forging a great bond and friendship, they're actually not doing that at all, because the Cancer part of them is just hiding their heart, protecting their heart, not letting you see the real you. Now, some people with this aspect are going to become downright secretive, and they're not going to want you to know what they're thinking and feeling. So you may also find people who are going out of their way to act normal so that you can't tell what they're feeling. And then a month later, you may find out they have a giant crush on you. So there's going to be lots of different reactions to this aspect. It's not a harsh aspect at all. It's one of the more pleasant aspects that we have during the month of April. Now let's move on to April 9th through the 15th. We start off with the Sun conjuncting Jupiter. Now, there are 3 aspects that happen on this day. So April 11th, I'm going to say, is a pretty important day. Sun conjunct Jupiter is usually one of the luckiest days of the year. So especially if you have planets in the fire signs at around 21 degrees, that would be, since it's the sun, we can use a bigger orb. So I'm going to say from 16 to 25 degrees. From 16 to about 25 degrees of the fire signs, you should buy a lottery ticket. You are going to be lucky. It's also a great day to use to start something. But remember that Jupiter expands things. So if you're wanting to start a diet, this is not the day to do it, because you're going to want to eat, drink, and be merry. You're going to want to expand that partying atmosphere. But if you're opening a business and you want lots of business to come towards you, lots of friends and family and everything to support you, this would be an excellent day to do that. Now, we also that day have Mercury square Lilith. Now, Mercury are your thoughts, and Lilith are things that dwell in the dark in your psyche. So your thoughts may migrate to the dark fantasies and things that you don't usually reveal to other people. During this transit, which is only going to be a few days, you're going to be working out if you should reveal these things to other people or how you can reveal them to other people, because they are a part of you. And while you may or may not be ashamed of those parts of you, you may not want to share them with everybody. You probably don't want to share them with everybody. And so you have to pick and choose who would respond to this in the most positive way so that you don't feel bad about it when you do expose yourself. You may decide that you don't want to reveal these things to anybody, but this transit is going to come back around towards the end of the month. So you have from the 11th to the 29th to kind of figure that out. Who do you want to reveal to, and what do you want to reveal, and, do you want to reveal at all? So you've got some time to figure it out. And I think with the Sun conjunct Jupiter on this day, along with the Mercury square Lilith, you may think, oh, everybody's going to accept this. It's great because of that Jupiter expansion, but it may not be. So don't do it on the 11th. Wait till the end of the month, but take your time figuring out how you're going to approach this. And then we also have Venus trining Pluto on the 11th. And this is going to bring a lot of emotional intensity to all your relationships, your friendships, your business partnerships, your romantic partnerships, your family relationships. Everything is just going to be heightened and a lot more intense for the couple of days that this aspect is in force. And it'll probably be in force from the 10th up through the 13th, I'm going to say. You may be wondering where all of this consuming intensity comes from. And you're going to think back and go, oh yeah, my astrologer told me that Venus was trine Pluto about mid-April, and so I was going to be feeling like this. And that's true. However, you are also going to be demanding this from your partner. Now, your partner is not necessarily only a romantic partner. This could be a friend who's a partner. This could be a business relationship. This could be a family relationship, and it could also be a romantic partner. So you may be making demands on your partners. And again, you've got Sun conjunct Jupiter, so you're making them in a big way, a big public way probably. And that may be embarrassing for your partner or you. And so I want you to realize that around the 10th to the 13th, if you've got planets that are in these early degrees, you need to temper yourself. Now, this would be for the Venus, Pluto, this would be the early degrees of any of the air signs, any of the fixed signs, any of the mutable signs. That's almost everybody. And yeah. Now, for the Sun's conjunct Jupiter, that's for people with later degrees. But the Venus trine Pluto, that's very, very early degrees. So just be a little bit careful with that. And then we come up to the 14th, where we have Venus squaring Saturn. Venus and Saturn are both going to be at very, very early degrees in mutable signs. So if you have planets that are in very, very early degrees of mutable signs, that would be anything from 0 to 8 degrees of any mutable sign, on especially the personal planets, so Sun, Moon, Mercury, Mars, Venus, even Saturn, then this is going to affect you a great deal. So the bad news about this is that this may herald the payment on your part of a long-standing debt, or it could be a long-standing court case that finally comes to settlement and you're the one that has to pay the bill, or some other financial or legal burden or responsibility could be imposed on you. Could be you get married. That's a legal and financial burden and legal burden that is imposed on you. Could be other legal entanglements that have possible financial burdens associated with them. So that's what Venus square Saturn really comes to. In some ways too, if it's hitting you at a sensitive degree, it could also have you doubting your lovability. You could be doubting whether you're really worthy of love. Don't go there. That's really not a great place to go. Know that you are worthy. Everybody is worthy of love. Everybody, there's nothing that anybody has ever done that causes them to be completely unlovable. That just doesn't happen. All right. And you may want to, if this is you and you have these degrees, you may want to consult an astrologer, because this is a tough one, Venus square Mars. It's not an easy aspect to get through. All right, now on to April 16th through the 22nd. And the first thing that comes up here is our solar eclipse at 29 degrees of Aries. So I've done a whole video about this, and the video is going to be a long one because I'm going to go through all of the elements of the eclipses and what they mean and why they're important to you, and also about this particular solar eclipse in Aries at the anaretic degree. This is an extremely important eclipse, and people are going to look back and see that this eclipse really predicted and heralded great changes for our whole country, for our whole world, really. Now, the first aspect to that eclipse is the sun at 29 degrees Aries, squaring Pluto. Now, this is one more reason why this is a huge month and why this is a huge eclipse. Pluto's involvement, and I believe Pluto was involved with the new moon at the vernal equinox as well. Pluto's involvement in these lunations gives them great power, and it also, to me, means that for sure when something else hits that degree, probably big things are going to happen, possibly bad things are going to happen. Tower moments are going to happen when other planets cross these degrees. And since this is an eclipse, this could be happening on or around the eclipse, a week before, a week after, a month before, a month after, or it could be when another planet hits that degree after the eclipse has occurred. That's usually what happens. That's what happened with the earthquakes in Turkey and Syria. We had the moon triggering the same degree as the eclipse that had happened last November, and it was in the chart for the country. It was bad. It was not good. All right, so what does this mean? Sun squaring Pluto. Well, just in general, it means that somebody's going to go on a power trip, and nobody likes that. But Pluto intensifies everything. Pluto brings up dark energies like envy, jealousy, manipulation, coercion. I got to stop before I go down a rabbit hole. Now, for a positive spin on this, this is going to last for about 2 weeks. The sun being our ego, and Pluto being the drive for power and control of one's environment. So when they square off against one another, you usually get this darker interpretation of just outright power struggles with authority figures or anyone you can wield power over. And I think you can easily imagine that in our country, because Pluto is still pretty close to our own natal Pluto, some big leaders are going to have these power struggles. Our government is going to be in a power struggle. It already is. But this eclipse could be yet another indication of big movement and changes in the dynamics of that power struggle. So there you have that. All right. Also on the 20th, we have Venus sextile Lilith. This is going to be very interesting. Now, this aspect is not connected, not like conjunct or anything. It's not at that 29th degree. It's not at that anaretic degree. It's at early degrees, 10 degrees Gemini, 11 degrees Leo. I don't know if these degrees 10 Gemini, 11 Leo are important for our country's chart or for Joe Biden's chart, but I'm going to look at his chart and the country's chart when I do the eclipse video, and I will let you know in that video what I think the impact of this eclipse could be on Joe Biden and on our country. Now, just Venus sextiling Lilith. So this is the one that I talked about that was going to come around at the end of the month. It's on the 20th, not the 29th. I misspoke, sorry. But if you're sensitive to this aspect, then what's happening here is that there are things about you, desires or just little quirks, things that you like, things that you don't like, things that push your buttons, that you don't usually expose to the world. You usually keep them hidden. And now you're going through a process where you feel that if you're going to be involved with someone, and this could be as a friend or a love interest or a business partner, if you want to be totally transparent to them and really allow them to know the real you, you may feel like they need to know this about you. And so you may have come to the conclusion that you do want to expose this. Then again, maybe not. Maybe you've decided, no, I'm going to keep this hidden and it's just for me and my cat. I don't know. It depends. All of us have a little bit of weird. We all have these funny things in our psyche. Some people's are more extreme than others. So you just have to feel it out. You have to use your instinct and your intuition and feel it out. There's no right or wrong answer to this. All right. And then the following day, right after the eclipse, we have Mercury going retrograde at 15 degrees of Taurus. So this is a big Mercury retrograde. For one thing, it comes right after the eclipse. So it's sort of involved with the eclipse because Mercury has been slowing down until it finally stations direct on the 21st, and it turns around and seems to start going backwards. Why is this important? Well, we're looking at the movement in our lives and in our country and around the world, and there have been many, many things that are not seeming to move forward in the pace that we would like. So by Mercury going retrograde, yes, it may stall some things, it may hold some things up, it may make things go slower. However, there is a purpose to Mercury retrograde, and I hope you will watch or re-watch the videos that I'm going to link in the description and at the end about the purpose of Mercury retrograde. There is a real purpose. The universe gives us this 3 to 4 times every year so that we can go back over issues that we've already seemingly dealt with to make sure that we dealt with them in the way that we think is proper. Sometimes you need to do that. We're not perfect. We don't do everything correct the first time. We think we do. We try to, but we don't always do that. So Mercury retrograde allows you a second chance, actually a second and a third chance, because it goes through the degrees the first time as it's slowing down to become retrograde. Then as it goes retrograde, it goes back over those degrees of things that already happened. And then when it turns direct again, a third time it comes over those degrees. So it gives you a good sweep, a good chance to go over things and really make sure that you've done everything that you really, really thought was needed to address the situation. All right, moving on to our last week, and I've included the 30th because it just seemed dumb to do, one day all by itself. So we're doing April 23rd through the 30th, and the first thing that comes up is, again, this Mercury sextile Mars becomes pretty exact again on the 23rd, and it will continue on because it's still going to be somewhat in orb, but because Mercury is retrograde, Mars is moving forward. So Mars is already at 14. By the time Mercury gets back to like 12 or 11 degrees of Taurus, this Mars will have gone up to, say, 15, 16 of Cancer, and they will be out of orb. They won't be affecting each other. So it may go past the 23rd, but I don't know how much you'll be sensitive to it because I don't know your chart. But this is the same as before. The mind speeds up with practical application, and Mercury's in Taurus, which is slow. Mars is in Cancer, which is somewhat weak, but it could produce some really great events if you use my cooking analogy. So apply that cooking analogy to your situation and see what happens. On the 24th, we have the Sun conjunct the node. Now, the nodes were involved in the eclipse. That's how it became an eclipse. So the nodes, again, are coming front and center. Sun conjuncting the node is a time where if you are sensitive to these degrees, you're really focusing on your mission in life, your destiny. Why are you here? Am I living for my purpose? You're going to be hit right between the eyes with the truth of what's going on if you are sensitive to these degrees. So that would be people who have very early degrees in the fixed signs, especially Taurus. For people who are earth signs, this revelation may be very easy to accept. For people who are the fixed signs, Taurus, Leo, Aquarius, and Scorpio, this may be a hard thing to swallow. You may feel like, no, that's not me. But that's your lesson. That's what you need to learn. And the sun is going to shine its light on you, on that issue in your life, your mission, and there's not going to be any denying it. And so you may be very affected by the eclipse. So on April 25th, we have the Sun sextile Saturn. This is a nice aspect. We have a couple of other aspects on this day. But the Sun is sextiling Saturn, and the Saturn is also in good aspect with the node. So again, we bring the node into the picture. But Sun sextile Saturn is just going to be you being able to show off your talents, show off your abilities, what you've learned over the years, and people will appreciate the fact that you can do these things and be very grateful. You will be helping people with these things. And while you might not always get praise for it, it does feel good finally to be recognized for these skills that you have. So while you may feel a bit like the tortoise in this race, it's fine. Nobody's keeping score about how quickly or how slowly you are obtaining your gifts and skills and talents, but they are definitely appreciative of the fact that you have done so. And then we have Saturn sextile the node. Now, Saturn is in Pisces, the node is in Taurus, but this is a nice aspect to the node because most of the aspects with the node make it a little bit tricky for you to appreciate how far you've come. And most of these aspects leading up to this point in the month have been pushing you towards finding that purpose, finding that mission, finding that, what am I doing to get to my legacy in life? Saturn is going to just kind of give you a little leg up. Saturn is going to reveal to you something that you've been working on for a very long time that is in line with your node, is in line with your mission, your destiny, your legacy in life. So Saturn's going to give you a gift here, and just smile and say thank you, and don't say, may I have some more? Just keep your head down and keep going because Saturn doesn't want to showboater. Okay. But this is a nice aspect to have with all of these other nodal involvements, because this is where you're going to see that you have made progress so that you don't feel so much like, oh, I haven't done anything. Now, if you're a glass half full kind of person, or a glass half empty. Anyway, if you're looking at this in a negative way, you could think, oh, but that's not enough. But you need to look at things in a positive way and say, oh, I've really been working towards my goal. Encourage yourself in this mission. And what's the next thing we have here? So here is Venus sextile Chiron. This is a healing aspect. And because it coincides with the other Sun and Saturn aspects and the node, this is going to be very good for you to improve your self-talk, improve the way you think about yourself and your legacy and where you're going. But also, if you do need healing, this is an excellent day to be doing some healing on yourself. And then we come to Mars square Chiron. Now, this is a tough one. This could put you in a state of resistance, especially if you have cardinal planets in these mid sign degrees. So anywhere from 15 degrees to 19 degrees of the cardinal signs, this is going to be a tough one for you. And you will hold yourself in a state of resistance, which is not great. So take advantage of the aspects on the 25th and the 26th. Those are the days to do healing and to ask for more from the universe. The 27th is definitely not. The 27th is a day to just grab a cup of coffee and go to work. It's not going to be a good day for healing, because you're going to be in a state of resistance against that. If you wait a couple of days, totally different. All right, then we have Mercury squaring Lilith. This is the last time we touch on Mercury square Lilith, so you really should have your decision in hand at this point and be ready to turn the corner. Mercury has retrograded back to 1 degree of Taurus, so this may feel like a second chance to get this right. And it is the second chance, so make the most of it. And then we have Mars sextile Uranus, also on the 29th. Mars sextiling Uranus is going to make the energy erratic, electric, eclectic, very kind of jagged and chaos-driven energy. But it will be inspired by something higher. It will be inspired by angels, by your guides, by the Akashic records, by God, by the universe. You'll find that there's an inspiration there that you can call to that will help you to make your move. And Mars is there, so you are going to take some action with this aspect. The effort that you put into this on the 29th will pay off in spades. It'll pay off tenfold. You will also find that you're going to gravitate to people who are eclectic, unusual, individualistic, or just a little quirky. You may also find yourself gravitating or even joining groups that are more community or political minded or quirky. You could also join a group that's very quirky. But march on, radical dude. It's your parade. All right. Okay, so that is all of the aspects that we have for the month of April. Let's just take time to have a little wrap up. So April's astrology is taking the sum of the energy from March and prepping us for the spring and summer. At the end of March, we had Pluto moving into Aquarius, which gave the other planets in the fixed signs, Uranus, Venus, Lilith, and the North Node, a kick of intensity and secretiveness and power. The full moon on the 6th in Libra is no lady. She brings energy to our relationship and holds up a mirror so that we can acknowledge who we are and how far we've come. For some, you will need to revamp things and make amends. For others, you may feel very comfortable with where you are. Our legacy and purpose in life come to confront us. Some may cringe and some may crow. If you're in the crowing category, be careful. You may not be seeing things realistically. As we move through the month, there is this repeating sextile between Mercury and Mars, lasts 2 to 3 weeks. This will have us alternately breezing through our days or biting our nails. Mercury is slowing down in preparation for its retrograde on the 21st. There is a fun period around the 11th where you can really let your freak flag fly, but then it's back to business on the 14th. The 20th brings us a solar eclipse in the sign of Aries. And if you're feeling a sense of deja vu, it's because we had another new moon in Aries on the vernal equinox towards the end of March. If you thought the equinox energy was intense, the solar eclipse on the 20th is even more so. On the 20th, the eclipse energy will be very, very intense due to Pluto squaring the sun and the moon. Think of this as a possible tower moment that interrupts our normal broadcasting schedule. The next day, Mercury will go retrograde. For the last week, we will begin focusing on our lives again, just like the beginning of the month, Only now we may have figured out a few things. Thank you, Eclipse. I'd say the entire month is excellent for healing, but get your request set up early before that full moon in Libra on the 5th. Otherwise, you'll be too wrapped up in your own destiny and your quest for your destiny, and you'll feel a little befuddled. You won't be able to focus on those healing vibes or where they should go. So that's what I have to say about the month of April. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for liking, sharing, and subscribing. And I will see you next time.